There- Does anyone have a question?
I have a question, Stuart.
Yes,
Um,
Chris?
In your book, when you talk about intuition, I'm fascinated to understand more about that. Trusting your heart, as you say. Do we tap into innate wisdom when we trust that intuition?
Yeah, well, look, generally, intuitive response to things are the real answers to situations. When people begin to mull it over in their brain and try to rationalize it and figure it out, they lose. They lose the essence of the experience and really what the universe is teaching them. Intuition is like inspiration. Understand? But inspiration also needs craft. I mean, if you're wonderful singer, if you didn't spend, many years of your life developing the craft of singing, all the inspiration in the world would have gone. No, it would have never become palpable. It would have never become part of your life. So all of these things work together.
Yeah.
The most difficult part about it is we don't trust inspiration, and inspiration really can stem from a person who's open inside. You're open to receiving answers. You don't have to mull them over. And what you have to do is trust those answers and use them in a way to respond to a situation. Inspiration gives us a much deeper idea of what other people are like. Generally, you know a person in 5 minutes. I mean, they come into your life and they have a certain vibration and they have, and some, wow, it's great. I love, or "Ooh, there's something wrong, and then we begin to rationalize it, and we begin to find, ways of, oh, I don't know, just trying to figure out the other person and this and that and the other. And it doesn't give us clear answers to what we're dealing with in the interaction with other human beings. It certainly doesn't give us clear answers if you live a creative life. Because what I've found in my life is inspiration, intuition usually brings with it the deepest elements of a book, the deepest elements of music, the deepest elements in art, and an artist or a musician or a singer or writer, they have to be smart enough to be able to recognize the depth of what has been given to them. And at the same time, we're not going to meet with a lot of people that have very much intuition. People analyze us, they figure us out, they're always examining and this and it doesn't work. It doesn't work. It really doesn't enable people to interact with life, in an inspired way. So I think intuition, and inspiration and anything of that nature has to do with how open people are.
Oh, uh,
I mean, you take a guy like Van Gogh, who was, the guy was nuts, cut off his ear. He went to live in a sanitarium. But you put him in front of a canvas, and suddenly everything was clear.
mhm.
Everything became clear for him in what his reality was able to manifest on that canvas in a profound and beautiful way. If he stepped away from the canvas, he was impossible to deal with. If he could have brought that same inspiration to his life, to his ordinary life, his interactions with other people and you understand, this would have been one of the, not just an extraordinary artist, but an extraordinary human being.
Yes.
And many people in the arts are that way. They, you put them on a stage and they're brilliant. You go to meet them after that and they're lunatics, you know? And it's, you know, and it's just something that has to be developed inside a person to where it's not only in front of a canvas, not only on the stage, not only when they're composing music, not only when you understand when they're creating a gourmet meal in the kitchen. That requires intuition and inspiration also, you know, but it's all of life, all of life. This sacred treasure that I keep talking about called life. And we can't treat it cheaply.
Yeah.
Understand? And on top of that, we will never be able to figure it out. It's impossible. The closest we can get usually is intuition and inspiration to being in tune with life.
That's
So I think
great.
that's, you have a question more or no?
Oh, I just think that's wonderful. That's so helpful.
Well,
Thank
it's, you know, I've lived my life this way, Chris. Even before Rudy, I lived this way.
you.
But before Rudy, I had no craft.
Yeah.
So I was always making myself crazy and insecure, problematic, trying to figure things out. I knew I could never figure out, but I would try anyway. You know, I lived that way. You know, from day to day, it was a world of intuition and inspiration, but I had no craft. I had no developed chakra system. I had no capacity to master the tension in my head, my emotional tension, sexual tension. You understand?
Yes.
And although I did live inspirationally, and I mean, my life was one intuition after another. uh, Not having that craft kept me from using this amazing energy consciously. So I became the servant of my own craziness, and it would determine how I lived every day until I met Rudy and I developed the craft inside myself to be able to use my intuition.
Mhm.
And not only in writing books, but in business, in relationships, and just about anything I had to deal with in life. The development of a chakra system gave me the craft to do it with intuition and not to bullshit myself around, trying
Yeah.
to convince myself something was real that wasn't real.
Great. Thank you.
I hope it's clear, you know, because I always say life is this extraordinary work of art. And the most wonderful life is an inspired life. Everything inspires you. You smell a rose, you're inspired. You have dinner, you're inspired. Every taste, every touch, the smell, the smells of life, you know, the odors of life, everything. What we see, the spectacle that we see every day, the colors, the forms, the things that artists try to create in their work, you know. Life presents it to us every minute, but we need the development inside to make all of that inspiration palpable so that it really teaches us about who we are and what our purpose is in life, what we have to give to life, what we have to receive from life.
Beautiful.
I mean, you know, when I was younger, I was in acting school, you know, and the teacher used to teach this. He would say, "You'll never be an actor unless you can learn to live in the moment." He said, "When you're on stage, you have to be the character living in that character's moment."
Yes.
And then when I met Rudy, it was the same thing. I it was the same thing. You're never going to be a human being unless you live your life creatively in that moment, because that's the only thing we have is that moment. Each moment on a chain, you know, linked together by consciousness. creates a life for a human being? Good question, Chris. I like that subject because it's been an important subject for me literally all my life.
It's
Even
very generous.
pre Rudy, I refused to live in a kind of dogmatic way. I was always rebelling in myself against mediocrity. I couldn't stand it. Pre Rudy, at the same time, I had no craft. So I was a little bit nuts, maybe a whole lot nuts. But once that craft started developing, it all became creativity. It became a whole, I mean, the day Rudy asked me to burn my poetry, I mean, really, it was one of the best days for me. I had to get rid of something that had become, it was, I don't know, it was creating a kind of dogmatic way of living. I was so reliant on this. I needed to get free of it in order to really write. And all the books I wrote came after that because I had more freedom. I wasn't trying to be a writer. I just let it come, inspired, and I knew I had to build the craft. I had to learn the craft. It couldn't be just something from my mind because it just gets boring. People read that stuff, it's just boring. So all of that's about interacting with life. Because that's the ultimate test, interacting with life, not books, not art, not music. Life is the ultimate test. It's the ultimate work of art.
Thank you so much.
No, you're welcome, Chris. Great question. And does anyone else have a question they would like to? I mean, I'm reading a book that I read many years ago by Dostoevsky called Notes from Underground. And it's really interesting. I mean, I don't like it as much as I liked it years ago because it's very negative, the book. But what's interesting is he says two plus two creates an insane person. And it's really true. Two plus two equals four creates an insane person. And it's true. It's just creating a mode of living that has to be that way. And you can't move left or right. It's got to be two plus. I just cracked up when because it's really true. Two plus two should equal five. You know, this is general thesis in the story, you know, and I think it's great. Although I don't, it's very negative, this thing. And I was kind of in a depressed mood when I read it when I was younger. My reaction to it is a lot differently. But that two plus two equals four is, the sign of a mad person. I think that's just great. I think it's just great. It has to be, you have to be right. It has to be that way. It can't be any other way. Every action has to have a reaction that is two plus two equal four. Otherwise, it can't, I mean, and the world functions that way. And yet, when people live creatively, two plus two equals five, or seven, or nine, not just only four. And then you get real creativity. Does anyone else have a question they would like to ask? Okay, if there are no more questions, great question, Chris. Thank you.
Thank
Great.
you.
No more questions, then there'll be meditation on Sunday. There'll be a class this evening that Jennifer will teach, and class on Sunday. God bless you all. Thank you. Have a wonderful weekend. Try not to live 2 + 2 = 4.
Thank you, Stuart. God bless you too.
Something a little different, see if it works. God bless you all, and I'm looking forward to seeing everybody soon.
Thank you, Stuart.
You're welcome.
Thank
Bless you all.
Thank you, Stuart.